What up, people? Welcome back, or welcome to the Book of Brock. I was thinking as I was filming these episodes of the Book of Brock that I would be doing a disservice if I didn't at least tell you who I am and how I became to walk on this spiritual path, or how I became a believer, and why I think about things the way that I think about them. Um, so let's just start at the beginning. So I'm 48 years old now. I was a military brat growing up. My mom joined the military to escape our little town of Leland, Mississippi. She had already had me, and so we traveled a lot. When she first joined the military, she wasn't married. So my grandma had to adopt me, and my grandma raised me like probably till I was like 5. Once my mom got settled in the military, I moved with her. So from that point, we kind of traveled around. Then she married my dad, and and then I had a little brother and a little sister. But anyway, so we started traveling. We weren't really a religious family. I mean, we didn't go to church or do a lot of those things when I was growing up that I could remember. But pretty much every summer, we would go back and stay with my grandmas on my dad's side and on my mom's side. See, we from a little town of Leland, both my parents are. And my grandparents kind of stayed like across town from each other. So we would spend most of the the weekdays with my mom's mom, and then on the weekend we would go stay with my dad's mom. Um, it's always been the way that it was. So both of my grandparents were in church, because I mean we're in the deep South in Mississippi back in the 80s. You know what I'm saying? 90s. So, but my grandma on my mom's side, she was Baptist. She would go to church every Sunday. She was usher on the usher board, and she would. They had like a roving pastor, like he would preach at their church, and then he would preach at a couple other churches. Now on my dad's side of the family, he had they were what we would call sanctified, right? They didn't wear pants, didn't listen to any music outside of Christian music, no secular TV shows, no nothing. So it was like real strict. That was my dad's like sisters, not necessarily my grandma. She was kind of like my other grandma, but some of them stayed with her. So when we went over there, of course, I had to do what my auntie said. We had to go to church, we had to do all this and all that every Sunday. So all of that lifestyle with my grandparents was completely different than what my parents, like, they used to party. My dad was an alcoholic, so they we wasn't talking about church. I never heard church or Christian or nothing, only when I went back to Mississippi. So anyway, when I went, from what I can remember, when I was like 8 years old, I remember going to church with my dad's people, and I don't remember what the pastor was preaching about. All I remember was that I was sitting in the pew listening to the pastor preach, and I just remember starting to cry, and I was crying, 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 and then I walked down to the aisle to where the pastor was, and uh, gave my life to Christ, or became a believer, however you want to define it. At that time, to me, I was giving my life to Christ, right? So when I feeling good, man, at church, they was hugging me, they was welcoming me into the family. When I came back home to my grandma's house, this was a summer that my dad was there for a couple weeks. Maybe he escorted us, because I think we were in Germany, so he escorted us back to um, he escorted us back to the States. So he was there. And when I came and I told him about it, man, he like flipped it. He flipped out. Like he was like, you don't know what you're doing. You don't know what the hell that means. You don't know. You don't know what that. You don't know what you're talking about. You don't know. You know, you too young to know. And then he kind of went off on my aunts, but they ain't pay. I mean, that's their brother, so they ain't really paying no attention though. But it meant something to me. You know what I'm saying? It kind of created this thing in me where I didn't like when I went to church. I just wasn't interested no more. And because he didn't like it, and you know, you a kid, so I'm going to something that my dad don't approve of, or I don't even know. I don't really remember why he went off so bad about it, but he he went off. You know what I'm saying? I'm sure now looking back, he might have his own way or reason why, but he went off about it, and so like I said, that was when I was 8. I still to this day believe that I became a believer then, and I just believe I became a believer then. So fast forward, living life, traveling with my mom and my dad, not really talking about church, only during the summers. Just wasn't no Christian. Didn't never even think about church, to be honest. Um, Teenage years, my mom gets out the military, retires from the military in Oklahoma, um, a town called Lawton, Oklahoma, Fort Sill. So I grew up from my junior high to high school years there. And the next milestone in my life occurred when I was in high school. And the military, since I'm in a military town, the military was like all you see when you know how you regularly see people walking around. We would see people in uniforms. So I mean that meant recruiters too. That would mean recruiters too, trying to recruit you to join the service. So they would always be up at the school. Well, one particular day they offered a if you take the ASVAB test, you could get out of class. Y'all, that was my whole purpose for going to school and taking the ASVAB, was so I could get out of class and get out of school that day. So I did it, but I was always planning on going to college. I wanted to go. I wanted to graduate, go to college, and get out the house, live a dorm life. I don't even know. I didn't know how I was gonna pay for it or any of those things at that time. I mean, my mom made enough to survive. My dad didn't really work, so I didn't really know how I was gonna pay for it, but that's what I wanted to do. So anyway, took the test. A couple of weeks passed. Then all these recruiters started coming up to the school to talk to me, and they was like, they like just like what the name implied. They were recruiting, and they said, hey, they seen my test scores, and they thought I'd be a good candidate for the military, and they offered a way to pay for college. So of course I listened, right? Because man, back when you're young, I think my mom was she was in the reserve, so she was on deployment when all this happened. So she wasn't really there, and me and my dad never really had a close relationship. So here I am talking to the recruiter. He's showing me all these numbers. He's taking me out to eat every day, picking me up from school. To a kid, you feeling special. So he's showing me all these numbers. He's like, yo, you join the reserves, you can pay for your college. You won't have to worry about college. I'm like, yeah, that's what I want to do. And there was a program at that time where you went to the military in between your junior and senior year. So I was still in high school. So, but it was called a split option. So I joined the Army when I was in high school. Went to basic, signed the papers, went to basic in between my junior and senior year. During when I went to basic, because I was an awkward kid too. When I went to basic, man, I got in shape. They had me doing push-ups, doing just basic training. When I got back, man, I had confidence. They built me up. So senior year, had money in my pocket, just feeling good, bro. Feeling like, the world is mine for the taking. I'm already got a job. I was in the reserves on the weekends, going to high school. You know what I'm saying? I was living that life for a second. And then I met my ex-wife. We met in high school. I think I was a senior then. She was a junior. She was a junior. Um, we dated, and like when I got back too, I was getting all kinds of attention from girls that I didn't get before. I don't know if just I don't maybe I think it's the confidence I had. So I was getting all this attention. So me and her started dating, and fast forward, she ends up getting pregnant towards the end of my senior year, and her parents put her out. She came to stay with me, and I remember something happened, like what happens early in pregnancy. I think she was spotting, and we had to go to the doctor. And her mom already said they wasn't gonna do nothing. They wasn't gonna help. I knew my parents didn't have the means to help or would help. So when we took her to the doctor, they gave me that first medical bill. That first medical bill was like $500 something for like just a checkup emergency room visit. I was working at McDonald's and Burger King at the time, so that's like 2, 3 checks for me. And I was like, damn, I didn't know what to do. You know what I mean? I didn't know what to do at that moment. Um, and I'm the type of person, I'm gonna make a decision. So I went and talked. I don't know if the recruiter came to visit me because I was supposed to go to AIT, the second level of training after my senior year. And he came to me and I was, telling him about the situation, and he was like, man, if you join the military full time, they'll help you take care of your kid, you know. And then, he said that, and I was like, okay. He's like, they'll pay all these medical bills. You won't have none of that to worry about. And to me, he kind of slid it in at the end. But you got to get married. You know what I'm saying? Once you get married, we'll take care of everything. Um, so then I talked to her. I knew we needed to do something. I really didn't talk to nobody else, not my parents, not her parents. And we just went down to the justice of the peace and we got married. Because I had a baby coming and I needed to take care of it. That was the only thing I knew to do. Now, afterwards, everybody was like, you should have said something. You shouldn't have got married, blah, blah, blah. But they wasn't making that shit known to me early. You know what I'm saying? So I did what I had to do. And so got married. As you can tell, man, people would come and tell me about church or tell me to go to church. They never mentioned Jesus. Just go to church. Come join church. Come do church. That happened all through my high school years. There would always be somebody talking about church. Never about Jesus. Just going to church. So still wasn't in church. Didn't think nothing about it. So me and her get married. I don't go to college. I joined the army full time. And God was looking out for me even then because I was originally going into the military for finance to do something in banking. But when it was time for me to become active, that job role that I wanted was full. So they was like, do telecommunications. You know what I'm saying? If you do that, then you can work for the phone company or something like that when you get out, make good money. And I'm like, okay. I didn't know anything about it. Work for the phone company. I knew my dad did back before he really became an alcoholic, and he was making good bread way, way back in the day. So I thought that was good. So they signed me up, join the army, get married, and um, we move off to Killeen, Texas, Fort Hood, Texas. Still no going to church, no real relationship with God. During that time, we had 5 kids, and every and, being a single, not being a single mom, but being a young family straight out of high school with 5 kids, we my wife would always go home to my mom, and my mom would help with the kids when I would be like going on training missions or getting deployed. But during that time, I think it's unique for me to share this story. When I got to the military, um, before the kids started, the first thing I said was, man, like everybody in my unit was cheating. The women, the men. I didn't know one person in my unit who wasn't cheating. And I thought that was so weird, man, because I didn't even at that time didn't believe in that, didn't do nothing like that. And I'm not saying that they made me do it though, because they wasn't with me when I did my dirt. But when my ex-wife would go back to Oklahoma, then I would have um, I would just be cheating on my ex-wife. I would act like I was single, like I had my own apartment. Some people, some women would figure it out. Most women didn't, and I was just doing her dirty, man. I don't know what she was doing on her end. That's her story to tell. But on my end, that's what I was doing. So just cheating left and right, and didn't feel really guilty about it. Only time I felt guilty about it is if I got caught. Um, and then towards the end of my military year, I had a daughter pass away from, they called it SID, sudden infant death syndrome, while my wife and them were in Oklahoma. Um, the baby passed away, just went to sleep and didn't wake up. And I wasn't there, and it hurt. Probably would have destroyed our marriage, and it probably was the start of outside of my cheating, it probably was the point that destroyed the marriage. So anyway, I ended up getting out of the military. We moved up to Fort Worth. There's a unique story in that. I might have shared that in a video, but being from a small town, and I used to drive from Fort Hood to Lawton, where my parents were, drive through Fort Worth, Dallas, man, and that was like a big city to me. It was like the biggest city I'd ever experienced. You know, I'm growing up, and I used to always, in my heart, say, "Man, I want to live here. I want to live here. I want to live in a big city. They doing so much, so many people. No matter what time of day, it was always so much traffic. Um, Driving down the street, and every time we would drive through, I just wanted to stay there. And anyway, as I was getting out of the military, I wasn't planning on move. I was going to move back home to Oklahoma and start, find me some kind of civilian job and start life. But the day before I turned my phone on, the house phone back then, the day before I turned the house phone off, I got a call about a job. It was like, "Hey, we got a job for you. It's in Fort Worth, Texas, a suburb called Southlake. We want you to come work for a company called Primeco." And this was back in the day when the military, when they hired you straight off the military, you didn't need a college background, you didn't need anything. For one, I had never heard of Primeco. Cell phones was just getting big then. This was back in 2000. And so they said what they was paying, what they was gonna pay. I think I was gonna make $20 an hour. Even that was way more than I was making in the military, way more than I knew that anybody else in my family ever made. And so yeah, they to this day I don't even remember applying for that job, but um, they gave me the job. It went to move to went to took the job, moved up to Dallas Fort Worth with a job that I didn't even apply for, didn't have to interview for, was well underqualified for, and it was going to provide me with more than enough to take care of all four of my kids and my wife at the time. So to me, that was a blessing because I didn't know anything about it, nothing. So we moved up here. Oh, we didn't even have a car at the time. My mama gave me her car to help me get back and forth to work. When I moved down here, she gave up her car. They didn't even have a car. They was gonna figure it out because this was such a good opportunity for me to provide for the family. And on the flip side, I always wanted to stay in Dallas Fort Worth, and now I'm getting the opportunity to. So moved up here. What happened? Okay, so after getting here, me and my wife staying together full time, me not going on training missions. Um, I think we realized that we probably weren't, because now I'm only 22, 23, and we ended up cheating on each other. I'm gonna say that. I'm gonna say I was cheating, she was cheating. The last strike was I caught her cheating, and so we had just we had just we just broke up, and that was a tough time for me. Man, that was a super tough time for me. That brings me to the next point in the story when I kind of had a glimpse of going back to church because for some reason, when we was going through the divorce and all the drama and struggle there, I felt the need to go to church, and I didn't even know what church to go to. Here I am. I've been in Fort Worth, Dallas, 2, 3 years, and didn't even know what church to go to. So I remember seeing a church off the side of the road, and I just went into that church. I went there for a couple Sundays while I was, I went through the depression of losing a marriage. Because mind you, even though my dad was an alcoholic and he didn't really work and didn't do all of those things, my mom and dad never got divorced. So I came from a two-parent household, so I didn't know what divorce was. And it was just real emotional. I felt hurt. I felt betrayed. Even though I did a lot of dirt to myself, I still felt like if she did it, it was the worst thing. And I couldn't take the same treatment that I had gave. Um, so, as time progressed, that healed. I stopped going to church. I probably only went to church like 3 or 4 Sundays in a row, if that. Um, Still didn't have any real relationship with the Lord. So now being newly divorced, making a lot of money in Dallas Fort Worth, being single, met a lot of women. I mean, I had a good job, got me a car. My ex-wife, and my kids was in Oklahoma. I was paying support there, but I was living that life when I was in Dallas Fort Worth. I was, being grown from a small town. You seeing so many different women here, man. It got to a point where I couldn't even remember all the women I was dating, their names or things like that. I was just doing it. And I had the perfect job at the time because I was working mid shift, 3 to 11. So there wasn't really time to date before, if you know what I mean. And then when I got off of work, everything was closed. So, hey, if you wanted to kick it with me, you had to get in where you fit in. So that's that was my life, my single life. So then one thing started standing out to me. I started noticing people, people with family and kids, and I started to miss it a little bit having that. But one time I got sick, maybe a flu or something real bad, and I realized I didn't have nobody who I would want to take care of me. Everybody who was with me, they was just come throughs. I call them come throughs. We would do whatever, but they wasn't somebody you just wanted to be sick with and lay up with and have them taking care of you. So I think that was really the turning point where I changed how I was dating to looking for somebody that I could be with. And lo and behold, I met my current wife. And met my current wife, and she was like 9 years younger than me. At that time, I was 27. She was 18. We got together, and I just really felt like the man. I don't know what y'all gonna think, but I felt like the man. She was younger than me, pretty young, PYT, pretty young thing. And we dated for about a year and a half. Um, and we just clicked, man. We just really clicked. We hit it off. Um, and I didn't want to get married again, but ended up getting married again because we spent all our time together. I started going to her house before work, after work. We moved in pretty quick, maybe 7 months after we was talking, and she she just, I mean, she was young, but like she was like already cooking, cleaning, already knew how to take care of the house. She knew my kids. My kids had met her family. They didn't act scared that I was here. I am 27 with 4 kids. We ended up having more kids, but at that time, I didn't know how much weight that was to put on a person. So anyway, after we get together about year end, my uh, oh, she was from a church family too. Her daddy was a pastor. Mom was real spiritual, is real spiritual, and they were going to church. When I met her, they were going to church every Sunday. And so after we get married, and she starts taking the kids to church, I never went. I always was like, man, I gotta go to work. I gotta go to work. So she was taking the kids. She was taking the kids to church. So as she was taking the kids to church, I stayed home, and then my old habits started coming back. I started being sneaky. I started cheating again, and she would catch me. I would stop. I would say I'm sorry, and the cycle would repeat itself. And I remember one day she went to church, took the kids to church, and I was at home. And even though I said I couldn't go because of work, they always made it back home from church before I went to work. But anyway, this particular Sunday, she got up, she took the kids to church. And I remember laying there. I had just got caught cheating again. And I thought, man, I can't stop. I don't know what to do. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, I'm going to be divorced again. I got more kids now. And I just didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to stop. I didn't know if I could stop. And I don't know, it wasn't a voice from heaven or anything like that. I just thought, man, if I'm going to try to save my marriage, let me just go to church, you know. So I started going to church a couple Sundays, and I remember hearing the pastor talk again. I don't remember what he talked about, but I remember sitting back there. And one day they did the altar call, and I walked up to the front, and I was like, God, if you could do this, if you could fix this for me. I don't know what I said really, but the feeling that I had was I can't do it. You know what I'm saying? I need you to help me. And I went down to the front, and next thing I know, um, it didn't happen instantly, but like over time, I started wanting to help out with the church more. I became my father-in-law's deacon, the very first deacon of the church he had. Uh, Started helping out, started, um, seeing how the church ran behind the scenes, because we was a small family church. We didn't have no more than maybe 20, 30 members. And my first experience with church was seeing that um, the pastors, or my father-in-law, he paid for everything for the church. He had a job, but he would still pay the light bills because, the family, it was like a family church. So all the people there, they would pay tithes or they would give when they could, but he carried the bulk of the bills. Anything that broke, he fixed. Anytime they had something going on, extra activities, the family pitched in and they did it. That was all I knew of church at that time. And ended up just, but there's one key thing that he told me. He told me that um, Read the Bible for yourself. And no matter where you go, where you're at, you'll know the truth. And he just said that randomly one day, but that stuck out to me. Like to this day, that's why I feel like even this is my purpose, is just to try to get people to read the Bible for themselves. Because then you can't be lied to, then you can't be deceived. Um, you'll know that people who proclaim to be preaching the Bible, if they're telling you the truth, because you read it for yourself. But anyway, God became real in my life there. And there's other stories and deviations that I could tell you guys, but I see them already up to like 30 minutes. So anyway, we end up moving to, we were in Dallas at the time. We ended up moving to Fort Worth. So it was a long ass commute to get to the church. And it was just time for us to start planting our own seeds and finding our own church to go to. And here I am, a brand new Christian. And so on the Fort Worth side, we found this Baptist church to go to. I think my father-in-law's church was Pentecostal, and I didn't really know what none of that shit was. But then when we got to Fort Worth, we went to a Baptist church. I was in that church for a couple of years. They were like, hey, you ought to come be a deacon. You ought to come be a deacon. And so I became a deacon at that church. And pride made me accept the position of chairman of the deacon board. This was a bigger church on a bigger scale, maybe 300 members. And I actually got to see how church business worked behind the scenes. My whole family helped me though. We all used to come in there, clean the church, help take care of the church, throw on events. I had most of the kids that was at the church. So, I just got to see how church business was. And at that point in my life, I was probably 30 something. And church became a job, not more so that I was using my relationship, developing a relationship. It just became a job. I remember one time I got up in the morning, I told my wife, come on, let's go to work. It wasn't church anymore. Anyway, that church relationship ended badly. That's another story on another day to tell. But it ended badly. And but right after that, I told my wife, this time we're going to pray and find a church. We're going to pray and find a church we want to go to. And she had a dream about a church. Not necessarily a particular church. She said a church in McKinney. And it was I can't even think of the church, but she had a dream about it. Anyway, so we was looking at that time, we were going to take the Dave Ramsey course. And when she was looking up places you could take it, she found a church called McKinney Church, because we were going by her dream. We were going to go find a church in McKinney. Now that was like an hour and a half away, but we felt like that was what God had put in her. You know what I'm saying? So we was going to figure out. I said he will make a way if that's the church we're supposed to go to. But anyway, she found McKinney Church. McKinney Church was giving a Dave Ramsey class. So anyway, when we went to, she found McKinney Church. And then come to find out, it was a McKinney Church in Fort Worth, right around the corner from where we stayed. So I said, damn, look at that, blah, 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 look at God. So we ended up going to the church. Very first service we fell in love with. Now, this was a completely different church. It was a predominantly white church. But the first sermon we heard the pastor preach was like, it don't matter if you're white, black, whoever, it don't matter. You know what I'm saying? We all gonna worship together. We all gonna, and that kind of just resonated with us. We were a part of that church for 3 to 5 years. And what I learned in that church was I just learned more about being in a community that is more than just the people in your church. You should try to reach the people outside of the church. I didn't see the business aspect. I wasn't in that part of the church, but it was just a different vibe than the church I had um, with them, with my father-in-law's church, with the Baptist church that I was chairman of the deacon board with, and I was comfortable just being a member again. And so we were there for about 5 years. Then they started a church plant in North Fort Worth, and my wife asked me if I wanted to do it, and I was like, yeah, I wanted to do it. And I remember going to the first meeting of that church, and I'm thinking they're gonna start telling us about, hey, okay, this is the logistics. We need to get the chairs out. We need to do this, and that. In the first meeting, they never talked about that. They talked about your relationship with God and how you bless other people. And that kind of resonated with me because it wasn't what I expected. And anyway, they end up launching a church. We helping out with everything in the church. And man, we were planning on actually, not y'all, I'm skipping chunks. I'll cover that in time, but I just wanted to give you the foundation. We were planning on moving up there closer to the new church where the new church was planted, but through circumstances it didn't happen. We ended up moving further south to Fort Worth, and we just kind of stopped going to church at that time. And then at that time, that's when I believe I had a spiritual awakening. I was not in church actively then, but I felt like I've grown closer to God since then. And I began to question some of the things that I believed. And even as I was asking those questions, God was showing me answers. He was showing me answers in the Bible. He was allowing me to ask questions. I was doing research, and I just started to see that not that we've been lied to, we just haven't been told the whole truth. And I guess more so, I started really reading the Bible for my own, making my own interpretations. And I just felt like my relationship with God grew over that time. So in a lot of my videos, I'll be talking about, it almost sounds like the church, the religion or church is my enemy, and it's really not. I just think that it's still important for us to read the Bible for ourselves, to do our research, to know what it is that we believe, to know what it is that we're putting our trust in. And to me, if you say your religion is what you stand on, and you see all these promises, you should want to capture them yourself. I didn't ever want to be a person to just go tell you about God and not know what I'm talking about. Not necessarily know what I'm talking about, but saying God can do this and I didn't see it. Or saying God had this power and I couldn't, and I never experienced it. I don't think that that's what it was ever about. So that started me on this journey, man, of just trying to claim my inheritance. I've seen God work in my ways in my life numerous times and in numerous ways. And I'll share those, as we come to those points. But I think I gave you enough. I mean, I'm talking for almost 40 minutes, and I just wanted you just to have a feeling of where I came from, a little bit about my background. I got 2 video series going. I think this is the Book of Rock, and I also got the 75 Days to Reign. You'll learn more about me. You'll see the journey that I'm on and where the Lord is taking me. But I hope that you see the power that I'm getting from Him, that I'm trusting Him for, because it's not just unique to me. It's for all of us. We are one big happy family in the eyes of God. Well, I'm gonna wrap this up. I woke up. I felt like I should share this. And I got it out. So y'all be good.